All right, here we go. Lab report number 4 underway. I'm going to have to get cracking today because I'm afraid today is going to be a longer one. And I originally set out trying to keep these things at 20 minutes or under 20 minutes, but sometimes I just get fired up about what I'm talking about and I want to go even longer. But as you guys know, with the lab report, the whole point is to try to give you thought-provoking ideas, ask you thought-provoking questions to get you to live the optimal lifestyle that you want to live and basically be a better version of yourself. Okay, for those of you that aren't familiar with who I am, I am a PhD, ABD in philosophy. I worked as a researcher and a strength and conditioning coach at Purdue. I've owned some gyms for the last decade. I currently am also involved in a couple other businesses. One of those businesses is I sell a medical device, and I'm in the neuroscience space. Okay, so I sell spine. Okay, to neurosurgeons, and this like bath of experiences has led to like some pretty profound thinking about how these different areas impact my life, and I think it can bring and add value to yours. Okay, and so today's lab report comes from an amalgamation of years of experience in different industries and personal experience. I was taking a course for my medical device job. Okay, and this course is centered around negotiations. It's a sales course. When you think of sales, though, don't think of it as like slimy, grimy stuff, right? It's not like I'm selling you a lemon on a used car lot. This is like some higher level brokering larger deals and communicating with like, number one, people that know more than you, right? I'm never going to sell a neurosurgery product to a neurosurgeon that knows less than I do, right? They went to neurosurgery school. But on particular products and approaches and procedures, I have a pretty good in-depth understanding. But in this continuing education course that I was taking, the guy giving it was talking about his experience, and he had a heavy dose of neuroscience in his continuing education over the year. Now, he was at the peak, right? He was at a high level of negotiation, high, right? The highest risk stakes, right? Negotiating for the CIA, right? So he was like not going into the neuroscience thing, but years back, like 2017, I went down this rabbit hole of neuroscience and basically behavior change as it related to the gym industry, because most people know to eat what a healthy food choice is, right? They know McDonald's isn't the healthy food choice, right? They know that a grilled chicken breast and some vegetables is a better option than a double cheeseburger and fries, right? They just know. But there's this huge divide between knowing and doing. And I've talked about this on one of the other podcasts before. Same thing with like people that smoke. Yeah, you know it's going to kill you, or there's a good chance it's going to kill you, but you're still doing it, right? So knowing's not the thing. There's something that happens in between the ears that causes you to make it a decision. And how you make decisions is oftentimes, not oftentimes, it's always it's always an emotional response. Okay, and that emotional response messes with the neurochemical makeup of your brain. Okay, and this is, everybody knows this because we have people that are depressed and are on SSRIs and things like that. But just bear with me here while I lay some of this foundation. Okay. His statement, when you're angry, you're dumber, was him basically saying, look, you get pissed off, there's a response inside your brain, it releases certain hormones and neurotransmitters, and those things have like a fight or flight response, specifically epinephrine and norepinephrine, and they cause you to fight, right? They don't cause you to logic and reason, right? And when you are in fight or flight stage, people have the ability to often overestimate their intelligence, right? And they think they're way smarter than they are, but maybe they're just saying dumb shit, right? Because they're in this fight or flight state. But the calmer you can stay, the better you can navigate those waters, stay nice and even keeled. This is the work that I've done over the years with like special forces guys. They all share this common trait that when things get really chaotic and really hectic, they have this ability to kind of detach from the situation, take a breath. Like, they'll talk about just breathing and like look around and see what's going on, try to see it for what it is, right? But if you have the ability to do that, you can change the neurochemical makeup in your brain. Okay, so this guy is talking about that, anger, how it causes bad decisions. And it got me thinking about neurochemical makeup and decision making and negotiating. In 2017-ish, 2016, 2017, I was doing some reading. There's a guy, Stephen Coulter, who wrote a book called Stealing Fire. It's a great book. I strongly suggest you read it. He might have been on Joe Rogan podcast, maybe not. And he wrote a book based off the research by a guy named I don't mess his name, but his first name is Mika. Okay, real long name. That's just part of it. He wrote a book called Flow, and he was looking at flow state and how people are able to execute at a high level at certain times, right? So the easiest analogy is like sports, right? You're in the zone, right? You're in flow. Like if you're just able to basically do no wrong, the game, whatever you're playing, slows down for you, and your ability to execute at a high level goes up almost effortlessly and without you really thinking about it. And creatives, writers, people of those nature, they have similar experiences. When you are in a flow state, there is a neurochemical soup, a neurochemical makeup in your brain that is certain parts dopamine, certain parts serotonin, certain parts GABA, certain parts norepinephrine and epinephrine. But you can't really understand, or we don't know what that magic potion is. Okay, we just know that it's something. It has something to do with these things. Okay, and so the book Stealing Fire, they basically did research and to try to quantify the hippity-dippity approaches to getting a flow state. Right, so let's just do yoga to get into flow state. Okay, well, they studied yoga. And if you do yoga and meditative breathing, can you get into a flow state? Yes is the answer. It takes a practitioner a really long time to learn how to be able to do that. It also is extremely limited in how long they stay in flow state. Right? So they could get into it, but they may have only stayed there for like 5 minutes. Okay, and so they have like all these different parameters, and I'm Reader's Digest this version, but the flow state that they found that was optimal. And I have no opinions on psychedelics or anything like that. This is just the research that they did. They had people get up in the morning. They had them go do some steady state aerobic activity. Okay, so the example they used was mountain biking. So they go out and do some mountain biking. They ride. They have 30 minutes of that. Okay, at the end of that mountain biking, they do something that's a little more risky. Okay, so for example, they rode these guys and girls down this really steep hill for like a minute. It's just a real hard ride down the side of the mountain. Okay, they did that. So they got to 30 minutes. And then their last minute, they're riding down this hill, kind of like white knuckling it. They go inside, they drink a cup of coffee, and they consume THC. Okay. Not a ton. Obviously, you're not going to THC yourself in your mom's couch, but a microdose or low dose or some dose, like a small amount of THC. And this seemed to create the fastest way to get into flow state and the longest the people were able to stay in the flow state. So it's roughly like 2 hours they can stay in flow state. So 35 minutes of activity to get into a flow state that lasted about 2 hours. Okay, so let's just say that's 3 hours of your day, which is pretty good. There's a lot of research out there that shows people go to work for 8 hours a day. There's some reports that say they're only productive for about 2 hours of those days. There's some research that says of the 2 hours that they're productive, there's only 30 minutes of it where they're doing high quality work, right? So every time they're like doing bullshit stuff, sending emails and things like that, but they're not like really focused and dialed in, okay? So we start going down this path of, okay, if I want to be more productive and get more things done and do whatever, I've got to be able to get in a flow state. And how do I do it? What's stopping me from getting there? And that's what the rabbit hole I'm going down today, okay? Because I want to be one of those people that has the same 24 hours in a day as everybody else, but has 6 times as much at a higher level. This is hard. I've been trying for a decade to do this. And sometimes I get in these really good stretches and I just kill it, make a ton of money, I'm a great dad. Like I do all the things really well. And then other times the wheels fall off. Okay? It can be hard to manage, but I'm not giving up on how to do it. I'm just continuing to think about my path. So if we break down the neurotransmitters, okay? Now you should, and ideally, if you're listening to this right now, you're sitting there with a pad and a pen and paper, because there's plenty of data to support that writing and taking notes in paper pen format is 6 times as effective than taking it on an electronic format, i.e. your phone or your computer. Okay, there's like an ingrained learning that goes in with taking notes. Again, part of this neuro-chemical makeup. I had a teacher in high school. I mean, gosh, this was 25 years ago. And we had a test. He said, you can have a 3x5 note card. That's your cheat sheet. You can have that on your desk. Whatever you can write on, you can write as small as you want. Whatever goes on that 3.5 note card, you can use. Well, shit. I wrote as tiny as could be everything I needed to know for that test. I was going to get an A, and I did. The irony is, by the time I got to the test, I didn't need to look at the note card. So I had written such detailed notes. You remember everything better. And I told the teacher that. I said, man, I didn't even use my note card. I already knew everything I wrote on the note card. And he was like, exactly. Right? Smart teacher. You know, he wanted us to have a good outcome. He knew that this was going to help, so he put us down that path, right? You have 2 huge players in serotonin and dopamine. These are the 2 that get chemically affected the most with drugs, prescription drugs, SSRIs. People with anxiety, depression, those sort of things. A lot of times there's issues with receptors. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just kind of walking you through some of the mechanisms that occur. But serotonin is going to be the neurotransmitter that is associated with happiness. You'll feel focus and calmness. The largest source of serotonin is in your gut. Okay, so just as an FYI, that neurotransmitter hangs out in your gut. Okay, so when we talk about food having an impact on your gut biome is 100% true, right? And intuitively, you know this because if you're like me, I'm a worrier. When I get upset, right, and I don't feel calm, my stomach starts to hurt. I've had it since I was a kid, right? Sometimes you gotta go to the bathroom, right? So it's not hard to understand that your gut is like your second brain, okay? Then we got dopamine. Dopamine is gonna be more centered around and stored in the brain, not the gut, as compared to serotonin. But it's gonna be associated with rewards and motivation, right? To keep it simple. Right, this is why people get in the habit of click, scroll. It's a rewards motivation type thing. You post something on Instagram, and you get back on there and see people liked it. That's a reward. And then once makes you want to post again, once you got some likes, it's just kind of this weird loop. And that can be good, but it can also be really detrimental to your productivity and other aspects of your life. Dopamine and serotonin are most affected, okay, and put into proper amounts into your system by high quality food, okay, because again, your gut's the primary storage place for serotonin, and then physical activity. What's interesting about physical activity is I had talked on one of the previous casts about the recommendation for 3 times a week of steady state cardio, 2 times a week of lifting. Steady state cardio, I mean 30 minutes. That low dose of activity actually has a pretty profound effect on your dopamine levels, okay? And if you have a good amount of balance of dopamine and serotonin, your ability to focus goes way up, okay? So you had if we go back to the example of the person doing the mountain biking sorry, let me back up. Serotonin is also widely affected by daylight. Okay, so light exposure, Huberman's been big on this, but if you get a lot of daylight, or an adequate amount of daylight, it also helps raise your serotonin level. Okay, so our mood and our focus and our ability to focus is much, much, much better, okay? when they were doing the mountain biking experiment and all that, they were doing it in the morning at daylight, at first daylight. Okay, and I think that that's like kind of a lost fact or lost point. They didn't really hit on too much in the book, but here in the morning, you're getting daylight, you're riding and getting your 30 minutes of cardiovascular activity. You're doing something that's a little bit more risky and a little more challenging, the downhill mountain bike sprint. So you're getting a lot of effects on your serotonin and your dopamine, right? You also have a spike in epinephrine and norepinephrine. Those things remind you to like breathe, pump your blood, those sort of things. Caffeine helps with some of that GABA release. And then you have the consumption of THC, which lowers your inhibitions and makes you relax. Some of that norepinephrine, epinephrine gets cleared out, and voila, we got this chemical makeup. Okay, so we're a little better equipped to making good decisions. Now, you cannot, obviously, consume THC and go into a business meeting. That does not work. Hey, stop. See, this puppy's chewing stuff up. You cannot do that, right? So we gotta find another way, or else you're gonna get fired. Okay, so or I would get fired. I'm sure I would. Okay, so but what we've done is we've laid the framework here for having an understanding of we got to have all these neurotransmitters in some sort of balance. Okay, if we are taking a shift and we're looking at this flow state, okay, so we understand there's a neurochemical soup that makes up this flow state. Optimally, it was created with some exercise, some activity, and some coffee and some THC. Okay, well, we got to take the THC out of the mix because I want to put this in the context of going to work. All right, I'm going to use this in my everyday life. An example that when I have a big meeting, this is interesting. And I was doing this. I didn't even know that I wasn't the only one doing this. When I have a big sales meeting, right, for example, something I really need to be dialed in and focused on, all right, a few things happen. And I would suggest you do this, all right? When I wake up that morning, I don't text anybody. And I don't look at any social media. None, okay? I always work out. I always do exercise. I always drink coffee. I always have water. I do not engage in text messages because some of the people in my life will do things that are say things that are negative and could possibly get me off tilt and be angry. And I don't want that. I want total focus for this next most important thing for my day, right? So if you have a fight with your girlfriend, fight with your ex-wife, you need to not be doing that. You're going to be less focused. You're going to change your neurochemical makeup, and your ability to close and execute and think rationally in a stressful situation is going to diminish. Okay. I also don't eat. And I always did that because I felt like when I didn't eat, I was a little bit more focused. And maybe we know that serotonin is primarily stored in the gut. Maybe that's a large impact of it. I always listen to a pump up playlist on the drive to the meeting. Okay. And it's like it's techno-y. I'll be honest, right? It's a lot of like put in Tiesto, right? Like that's basically what it is. It's like high energy, rave type music, right? And that's what that music like really was, like high energy type music that people started creating. And granted, they're using psychedelic drugs, mostly those things, but it's like music has been associated with raising your levels of serotonin. Okay. And every time I'll do those things. Okay. So I'm not going to text people. I'm definitely not getting on social media. I'm going to work out every morning. I'm going to hydrate. I'm going to have some caffeine, right? A little bit of epinephrine, norepinephrine stimulation, right? And then I'm going to get this like serotonin release with music. Okay. And I also have an app, it's called Indle, but it's like I have focus playlists. There's no words to it, but it's like focus music that I'll listen to. And I do that every time, and I feel like it helps me perform better. Well, I was on a work meeting a couple months ago in Texas, talking to another guy that was a high performer. We worked together, and he told me, basically he did the exact same thing, right? He was like, man, I gotta listen. We were getting ready to walk into me. He's like, sorry, Dan, can't talk to you anymore. I gotta listen to my shit, right? So he's putting his headphones, like, listen to his thing. And we went to get breakfast that morning. Neither one of us ate. We both drank coffee. So when it was all said and done, I said, hey, man, do you do these things? And he was like, yeah, exactly. He's like, and he's not thinking about it from this standpoint. This is just the groove that he's figured out this works best for him. So I think there is some truth to it. Okay. How you choose to execute on this is going to be entirely up to you. If I go back to the original statement that you're dumber when you're angry, I think that is the most, I won't say the key takeaway from this, but it's one of a big one. Because if you change nothing else, right, and you didn't let what somebody else said make you see red or make you go, on the meter, you are having a control over your physiology, and you are able to make better decisions, right? And you can think about that in any context. I think about it with my ex-wife, because a lot of things she says and does could easily set me off. Sometimes it does, but I try not to let it, because when I get angry and upset, I'm dumber, I'm not smart, and I don't want to come off that way. So a lot of times I'll just shut my mouth, ignore it. It doesn't get to take up any space in my day. So that being said, if you want to be a top performer, or somebody that squeezes more work in a day, starts more businesses, is more present with their family, whatever it may be, these are things that you can easily do to be better. And you can think about it from the neuroscience standpoint. If you just got up every single day and exercised, did some cardiovascular activity, lifted weights a few times, ate healthy foods, you're already so far ahead of everyone else. Okay. If you're interested in the THC component, by all means, go for it. Don't drive the school bus. I don't know. Like, it should be legal where you're at. But anyway, those are my thoughts. We all have a neurochemical soup. If you would like to take it even a step further, just for your thinking, think about, and this is relevant to me right now, I have an adolescent, pubescent son, okay? And so the hormones are everywhere, right? And you can see his emotional roller coaster going up and down daily, out of his control, right? His body's making these hormones he's never had. He doesn't know how to deal with them. It's going up here. He's just saying crazy shit, things that are not accurate. He's saying dumb things, right? Because he gets angry and then he says stuff like, I don't know, you don't love me, just like whatever it is that kids blurt out. They have a neurochemical soup going on in their brain that is beyond anything that we can comprehend, because it's just not balanced, because not all the parts of their body are physically developed to help balance them. Okay, so just another example of how all these things regulate your neurochemical soup. Again, if you're talking about with adolescents, probably the easiest thing to do is make them exercise. Hopefully they have fun doing some sort of physical activity. I would encourage them to do that physical activity, and then try to get them to eat a reasonably healthy diet. I mean, it's not sexy advice, but that's the advice. Anyway, tried to keep it at 20 minutes, went to about 24, but I appreciate you guys and gals. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for your feedback.